Hello friends, in this video we are going to learn about loops in Python. So while building an application, you often have to do things repetitively. For example, if I ask you to print all the integers from 1 to 5, how will you do that? You may say that I will do that using print statements, simple print statements like this. I'll write one print statement and will copy it 4 times like this. And we'll simply change the argument inside the print method like this. And if we run the cell, we get all the integers from 1 to 5, each in a separate line. Now, instead of asking you to print till 5, if I ask you to print till 1000, what will you do? Will you go on copying this print statement 999 times? Don't you think that is a sheer wastage of time and that is highly impractical? So is there a better way to achieve this? Yes, there is definitely a better way to do things repetitively, and that is by using loops. So let's flip to the slide and let's see what loops actually are. So in Python, or in any programming language, a loop statement allows us to execute a statement or group of statements multiple times as long as a certain condition remains true. When that particular condition becomes false, those multiple lines inside the loop are no longer executed. So for the time being, you can ignore this diagram because now if I want to make you understand this diagram, this may seem to be a bit confusing or a bit cryptic to you. So first we will look at practical examples of loop, how we can use loops to execute statements repetitively, and then when we'll come back to this diagram will look crystal clear to you. So let's switch back to the Jupyter notebook. So there are mainly two types of loops in Python. One is while loop and another type of loop is for loop. So first we will discuss about the while loop. Now let's see how we can solve this problem with while loop. That is without repeating this print statement multiple times. So a while loop mainly has three parts. The first part is iterator variable initialization. The second part is condition checking. And the third part is iterator variable increment or decrement. So we want to print all the integers from 1 to 5. So first of all, let's take an iterator variable called I and initialize that to a value 1. Fine. Now what is the next part? The next part is condition checking. So we write it like this: while I less than or equal to 5. So what does this while statement do? It ensures that the loop continues until the iterator variable I achieves a value of 5. And when the value of the variable I becomes greater than 5, the loop is no longer executed. So the function of this while statement is to check the condition whether the current value of the variable I is less than or equal to 5. If it is less than or equal to 5, then it allows the control to enter inside the loop, and if it is greater than 5, then it will not allow the control to enter inside the loop. So let's put a colon here and let's press enter. So as you can see, some blank spaces are automatically added. That is, it has already given us an indentation which indicates that the while block is starting from this line. So inside the while block, which statement should we execute? Inside the while block, we will execute the statements that we want to execute repetitively. So which statement do we want to execute repetitively? We want to execute the print statement repetitively. So that's what we will write inside the while block. So what is the meaning of this entire thing? As long as the value of I is less than or equal to 5, it will keep on printing the current value of I. Now we are done with these two parts. Now what is the last part? The last part is iterated increment or decrement. So we write it like this: I equal to I plus 1. So why do we need this part, iterated increment? If we don't mention this line, two different problems would arise. The first thing is that the value of the variable I will always be 1. As it is initialized to 1, if we don't mention this line, the value of the variable I will remain 1 forever. So each time it will enter the loop, it will print 1. Instead of printing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, it will keep on printing 1, 1, 1, 1, 1 like that. This is one problem. And the second thing is that as the value of the variable I will remain 1 forever, so this condition will never be false. So in that case, the loop will never terminate. So it will keep on printing 1 for infinite number of time. So it will lead to an infinite while loop. So that is not what we want. We don't want an infinite while loop. We want the value of I to be printed 5 times, and we want the value to be incremented by 1 each time. So if in the first iteration, if it prints 1, then in the next iteration we want the value of I to be changed to 2, and in the next iteration we want the value to be changed to 3, and so on. So that's why we use this increment or decrement part. So if we now run the cell, you can see that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 is printed. And in this case, we have not repeated the print statement. We have used the print statement only once. Still, we have got the same output. Now let me copy this entire code to Spyder IDE, and again with the help of the debugging tools available in Spyder IDE, I will show you the line by line execution of this entire code. So let's paste our code here. And let's start our debugging session by pressing Ctrl plus F5. So you can see the debug pointer here. Now if we press Ctrl plus F10, okay, before pressing Ctrl plus F10, let's click on the variable explorer. Once the execution is started, in this variable explorer, you can see the current value of all the variables. Here we have used only one variable I. So in the variable explorer, you will see current value of the variable I. So let's press Ctrl plus F10. And as you can see, as the first line has been executed, a variable with the name I has been created, and its type is integer, and the value that it is currently holding is 1, right? Now if we again press Ctrl plus F10, you can see the control has entered the while block. Why has the control entered the while block? Because the current value of I is 1, which is less than 5. So this condition has been satisfied, or this condition has evaluated to true. That's why the control has entered the while block. Now after entering the while block, we again press Ctrl plus F10. So you can see the current value of I has been printed here. The current value is 1, so that has been printed here in the console. Fine. So let me just increase the font a bit for you. Okay, so the first value of I has been printed here. Now if we again press Ctrl plus F10, look at here, the value of I has been changed to 2. Now it has again, as the first iteration has been completed, it has gone back to line number 2, that is, it has gone back again to the condition checking line, and it's again checking whether the current value of I is less than or equal to 5. So the current value of I is 2. So this condition again gets satisfied, and it will again enter the while block. It has, as expected, it has entered the while block. So it will again print the current value of I, which you can see here, will again increment the value of I by 1. So here you can see the value of I has changed to 3. Now if we just keep on executing the lines one by one, you can see the current value of the variable I being changed, and it is being printed in the console. So 4 is printed. Now you can see the current value of I has reached 5, but still this condition will be satisfied because 5 is equal to 5. So this condition will again be satisfied. So the control will enter the while block again. It will print the current value of I again, which you can see here, and it will again increment the value of I by 1. So you can now see the current value of I is 6. Now when the current value of I has reached 6, this while condition will no longer be true, right? Because 6 is neither less than nor equal to 5. So if we again press Ctrl plus F10, let's see whether the control enters the while block or not. Let's press Ctrl plus F10, and you can see it prints return, and the control has not entered the while block anymore. So if we again press Ctrl plus F10, the debugging session will end. So guys, please don't get confused by seeing these two extra variables, as we worked with these two variables in our previous file. That's why these two variables are still in the memory and are appearing in the variable explorer. But these two variables has got nothing to do with this code. So to avoid any further confusion, let me clear out all the variables from the variable explorer. For that, you can press percentage, or what we also call modulus in programming, modulus reset, and if you press enter, it will give you a prompt: once deleted, variables cannot be recovered. So if you press yes or Y, it will clear out all the variables from your variable explorer. Fine. So the next thing that we are gonna discuss is the break statement. So while using a loop, in specific cases, you may want to terminate the loop prematurely. That is, you may want to terminate the loop even if the while condition is true. In such cases, we use break statement. Break statement allows us to terminate the loop before completing all the iterations. So suppose I want to terminate the loop whenever an even number is encountered. So we can achieve that by using a break statement. Let's see how we can do that. If I modulus 2 double equal to 0, you break out of the loop. Fine. So whenever an even number is encountered, we will break out of the loop. So let's restart our debugging session by pressing Ctrl plus F5. You can see the debug pointer pointing to the first line. Press Ctrl plus F10 to move to the next line. So currently I is 1, which is less than 5. So the condition is true and it will enter the while block. Then the condition is checked whether the current value of I is divisible by 2 or not. It is not divisible by 2, so it will not enter the if block. So it will come here from line number 3 to line number 5. It will print the current value of I, which you can see here 1 is printed. If you again press Ctrl plus F10, the value of I has been incremented by 1 and the current value you can see is 2, and while condition will again be satisfied and it will enter the while block again. So now this time this if condition will be satisfied. So it will enter the if block, and after entering the if block it will come across the break statement. Now let's see what happens now. Now if we press Ctrl plus F10, you can see the return statement is printed, which indicates that our code execution has ended. And if we again press Ctrl plus F10, our debugging session will also end. So you can see how we can prematurely terminate a loop using the break statement. We terminated the loop even when the while condition was still true. So the next thing that we are going to discuss is the continue statement. By using the continue statement, you can skip the remaining lines of the current iteration and continue to the next iteration. So let's see what we mean by that. Suppose instead of terminating the loop when an even number is encountered, we want to do something else. When an even number is encountered, we want to skip printing that particular number, but we want to continue with the next iteration. So when the current value of I is 2 or 4, we want to skip printing the variable I, and we can achieve that by using the continue statement. So let's use the continue statement here. Let's bring this increment statement up, because in no way we want to skip incrementing the variable. We just want to skip the print statement. In no way we want to skip the incrementation of the variable. So let's put it here. So in any case, the incrementation of the variable will not be skipped. And instead of initializing I to 1, let's initialize I to 0. Because if we initialize I to 1, then the print statement will start printing from the number 2. The number 1 will not be printed. So let's initialize the variable I to 0 and let's start our debugging session once again. Let's press Ctrl plus F5. So again we are in the first line. So let's press Ctrl plus F10 again to move to the next line. And we see that the variable I is initialized to the value 0. Next we enter the while loop, because this time as the value of the variable I is 0, the while condition will be true. So we enter the while block, and the value of the variable I is incremented by 1. So you can see the current value of the variable I is 1. Now this if condition will not be satisfied, and the control will not go to line number 5. From line number 4 it will go to line number 6 directly, and that happened. It will print the current value of I, that is 1. So you can see it getting printed here. 1 is printed. It will again go back to condition checking. The condition is true here. It will again enter the loop. The value of I is incremented to 2. You can see the current value of I is 2. Now this time this if condition will be satisfied and the control will enter the if block. So here it comes across the continue statement, and what I have just said, when a continue statement is encountered, the remaining lines of the current iteration are skipped. So which line of the current iteration is remaining? Print I. This line of the current iteration is remaining. So for this iteration, this line will not be executed and the control will directly go back to line number 2 from line number 5. Let's press Ctrl plus F10 and you can see the control has gone back to line number 2. So again the value of I will be incremented by 1 and it is changed to 3. So this if condition will not be satisfied and again the control will go from line number 4 to line number 6. So as no continue statement is encountered, so the print statement is not skipped. Again it goes back to the condition checking line, that is line number 2. The value of I changes to 4, which you can see here. Now again this condition will get satisfied and it will enter the if block. The condition continued statement will be encountered and again the remaining statement of the current iteration, that is the print statement, will be skipped. So from line number 5 it will again go back to line number 2. So you can see that the control has gone back to line number 2. Current value of I is 4, which will be changed to 5 in line number 3. So current value of I is 5 and this if condition will again not be satisfied. So it will come to line number 6, print the current value of I, that is 5, which you can see here. 5 is printed. Now it will again enter the loop, will increment the value of I by 1. So I will be changed to 6. This if condition will again be satisfied, continue statement will be encountered and the print statement will again be skipped. So if we press Ctrl plus F10 again, it again goes back to line number 2, but this time the condition evaluates to false and the loop terminates. So this is how the break and continue statements work. Now one more thing is that you can use an else block at the end of a while block. So when will this else block be executed? The else block will be executed when all the iterations of the while loop are completed and the while condition is no longer true. So let's see that in action. Let's use a else block here, and here we'll print all iterations completed. So for saving our time, let's now bring down the number of iterations to 3. So let's start our debugging session once again. Let's press Ctrl plus F5, then Ctrl plus F10. So the first line has been executed and I has been initialized to 0. So now we enter the loop. I has been incremented to 1. So we go line by line. Second iteration is started and I has been changed to 2. The print statement is skipped. The current value of I is 3. So this is going to be the last iteration. It will enter the while block and the last iteration has also been completed. Now the current value of I, as you can see, is 4. So as the current value of I is now 4, the while condition is no longer true and we have completed all our iterations. So if we press Ctrl plus F10, it will enter the else block As I just mentioned, when all the iterations are completed and the while condition is no longer true, then this else block is executed. So that's what just happened. We have completed all our iterations, so the control has now entered the else block, and this print statement inside the else block will be executed. Now the question is that, will the else block be executed even if all the iterations are not completed? No, the else block will not be executed if we break out of the loop. That is, in case of premature termination of the loop, that is when all the iterations are not completed and the while condition is still true, the else block will not be executed. Let's check that as well. So instead of using continue, let's again replace this by break. So we will forcefully terminate the loop before all the iterations are completed, and let's see in that case whether this else block is executed or not. So let's rerun our debug session. So the control has gone to the first line. Now if we press Control plus F10, it goes here. Then we keep on pressing Control plus F10. So currently the value of I is 2, that's why the control has entered the if block and it has come across the break statement. So it will now break out of the loop even if the while condition is still true. And in this case, let's see whether the control goes to line number 8 or not. If we now press Control plus F10, you can clearly see the control does not go to line number 8, rather the return statement is printed, which indicates the execution of the code has finished. So if we again press Control plus F10, our debugging session will end. So in case of premature or forceful termination of the loop, the else block will not be executed. The else block will be executed only when the while condition is no longer true. So friends, that's it for this video. I have shared with you some practice problems. Please try to solve them, and while solving the problems, if you face any difficulty, that's completely normal. You are just starting with your journey in the loops. So as you will practice more and more problems, these things will become more and more clearer to you. And anyway, I'm going to share the solution of these things in my upcoming videos. You can let me know the answers of this question in the comment section. And if you have liked the video, please subscribe to my channel, and please don't forget to like and share my videos so that others also get benefited from this. Thanks a lot for watching.